Hey y'all, I'm warning you guys now. You guys are going to get a lot of videos in the same outfit progressively while I'm doing my hair. I figured since I have to braid my hair and stand here for a few hours, I should film. So that's what we're doing. Also, you guys know that I am a hairstylist, so there's going to be videos on the hair page as well as this one of me doing the same thing. So I'll try to break it up so it's not redundant, but that's where we at right now. So the very first thing that I wanted to talk to y'all about is a lot of us, male and female, we get blamed for the people that we pick or choose, right? So when a woman gets with a man, and let's say that the man, she has a baby by the man, and all of a sudden, you know, things go wrong, and she ends up a single mom, right? Our culture and our men will gaslight us and tell us, "Oh, you should have picked better," right? And a lot of the times that can be true, but at the same time, humans are ghetto, and you don't always know what kind of person you're gonna run into, what you're gonna deal with, how they're gonna switch up on you. There are some men or human beings, period, that are cool up until you have their child, and then once they realize that they're no longer getting the attention from you that they used to get because now there's a baby in the picture, they get jealous and they switch up. My oldest son's biological father, when I had him, y'all, he literally could not take the attention that I was giving my son, a whole newborn. He literally got on social media, on Facebook, and made a post that said, "Fellas, just be prepared, you know, to no longer matter when the baby comes, because she's going to give more attention to the baby than you." And it's like, duh, ain't that what I'm supposed to do? So I'm going to speak on both sides of this, right? I'm going to speak on the side of, yes, sometimes we are just horrible people choosers, and sometimes you really just don't know. So as far as picking wrong goes, a lot of the time, and this goes back to some of the other videos that I've made, a lot of the time we go for what's familiar, right? Especially if we have not yet done the work to recognize, what is and isn't good for us. So a lot of the time, for instance, if you grew up in a household of chaos, and I learned this watching my oldest son's father, well, biological father, because he's not a father, he's a donor, but that's a story for another day. So what I learned watching him was he grew up in a family where his parents were together, and they divorced when he was 19, right? And on paper, that sounds like a good thing, right? Like, oh, okay, well, you know, he grew up in a 2-parent household. Yeah, baby, but it was chaotic. His father was very much a groomer. So when he met his mother was 16 years old. She was the third to the last baby of, I think, 11 or 12, something like that. I think it was 11. It was like a Krishan type situation. And so by the time she came into the picture, she had older siblings that had already moved out. She had, her parents were obviously getting older. And a lot of attention and love that she should have gotten wasn't paid to her. And obviously, this is why I always say we have to do the work, because a lot of those things play into the things that we are comfortable with and the people that we end up associating ourselves with and having ourselves around. And so she gets with this man that's already kind of grown. I don't know their age difference, but I know he's much older than her, and he was an adult at the time. And she dates him, she has a baby by him, whatever. So this young man now and his siblings, for the next 19 years at the least, are seeing utter and complete chaos. But all he knows is, no matter what my mom and dad do to each other, or no matter what my dad does to my mom, or the things that, my mom is being subjected to, no matter what happens, my parents stayed together. Now, I'm a kid that grew up on the opposite side of that spectrum. My parents didn't work because they were the same person. Like, they were both alphas. And they always say my mom can be feminine in situations of, like, she's very domestic. She can clean her ass off. She's super OCD. She keeps a very beautiful home. She can cook her ass off. She smells good. She keeps up her appearance. That's why I'm so good at hair, because I learned a lot of what I know from her. I just happen to be the one to take it and make a business out of it, and be more of a professional. But my mama, it was already in her. If you guys hear little footsteps, that's Champ. So with my mom is very masculine in the sense of she grew up in a household where there was domestic violence. And so I'm not gonna say that men weren't safe to her, but she always has operated from a place of, like, she's not gonna let no man harm her. Like, she'll fuck a man up before she let a man do anything to her, right? So I said it to say that my mother took what she saw my grandmother go through and told herself that she was not going to go through the same or have that same story. And so my parents, the both of them, when they realized that their relationship wasn't working and that they were both two bulls in this relationship, they left well enough alone. Now, they were embarrassing when I was growing up. They had a very toxic co-parenting relationship, if you want to call it that. And a lot of it, in my opinion, was just the battle of the egos. Like, for instance, if my mama said, hey, I need your help with, tuition, and my dad said either I don't have it or I'm not paying it, then she'd be like, well, you can't see your daughter. And once my mom told my dad, like, he couldn't see me, now it's like World War III in my life, because they both definitely used me to hurt each other, which is why I have had in the past the gripes and grievances that I've had with them. So I say all that to say that I grew up being taught that if a situation doesn't work, leave well enough alone. You don't have to be subjected to any abuse or disrespect, right? Well, he was not taught the same. And then when his parents did divorce, it was that kind of toxic situation of, you had the father was always stepping out, and the mother got sick of it. And one day she met somebody that she was interested in. And when he found out about it, of course, he couldn't take what he had dished out. And that was the end of their relationship. And in that also, in order to punish her, per se, he would pay like child support and stuff, but he wasn't making much of an effort towards his children anymore. He kind of left a lot of that for the stepdad to do. And up until the day that man died, he actually did. So rest in peace to him. But this taught my son's donor that you were supposed to stay with somebody no matter what they do to you. And that was just not how that worked for me. And I feel like he used that as an excuse to treat me the way that he treated me. He was also the one in the family that was kind of doted on. But we know how like it is when it's boys and stuff in the family as well. So I think that played a big part of it. He was the first boy. He was an aspiring athlete. And I think that, he was the one, he never really gave him too many problems. But the problem was no one ever really required much out of him. So whenever anything went wrong in his life, his mother always came to the rescue. If he fell short somewhere or he did something wrong, per se, his father was always there to make excuses for him. And of course, obviously trying to date that or procreating with that made the situation that much harder. And so up until he finally just decided to completely be a deadbeat, he would do things to try to make life hard for me. This is also why I make so many videos on like unhealthy relationships and narcissists, because I've dealt with it. And people get sick of the term, but you have to learn how to identify these things in order to get past it and get away from it, especially before it takes a mental toll on you. So that for me was just the example of, it's not even necessarily about who you pick. Some people, you really don't know who they are until they get comfortable enough to show you. It was a podcast that I was watching earlier this morning where this man, the podcast was called I was married to a narcissist. And so the wife told her perspective first, and then the husband came on and he spoke about his. And it was actually a really good podcast. If I can remember, I'll link it in the description, because both parties took accountability for the parts that they played. So the wife, spoke on, I didn't always handle situations the best. And, this is the mistakes that I made, or when I recognized this, I didn't really know what to do with it or how to deal with it. So this is what happened here, here, and here. So, the husband, he gets on and he just talks about how one of the things that he struggled with in being a narc was he was very jealous of his wife. And part of his jealousy was that he felt like she was a lot further along in life than he was. And a lot of people in general deal with this, but I will say, like, as a woman, and this is not to exclude anyone, because I know people, I always get the Me Too comments. I always tell y'all I can only speak from my own experiences. So when I say something, I usually say, well, for me, this is what I went through, right? So he speaks about how, he was jealous, and I've dealt with that in so many situations. Like, when you look at, for instance, like the Cardi and Offset situation, she got to a point where he felt like, especially with them being in the same industry, Iman Shumpert and Tiana Taylor, same thing. I've said this before. There's a lot of men that when they can't reach you financially, or they feel like you're surpassing them in a way, they will cheat on you or abuse you as a means to try to humble you. And that's what's happened in a lot of these situations, and I've been there, or they be in this weird competition with you. He's just the first man that I actually saw. This gentleman in the podcast was the first man that I actually saw admit to it. And once again, this is why therapy is so important, because, dang it, I lost it. So he spoke on it, like, it was jealousy, it was yada yada yada, right? And so some people he spoke on how, like, part of the issues that him and his wife were having in their relationship was because obviously over time, the person that he was pretending to be, or his character, he could no longer play this character anymore. Like, they had been in a relationship for so many years, they had been together for so many years, that facade was starting to break down. And a lot of us, people will tell you, like, oh yeah, we fall in love with characters, but let's keep it a buck. A lot of the time, it takes years to recognize who these people really are. And if you're dealing with like a narcissist or a sociopath, a lot of the time they become who they think that you want, or who you tell them that you want. And so they've never even had the chance to fully be themselves. Or there's some of us, I've spoken on my trauma lightly on this channel before. There are some of us that have had traumatic experiences, and you become that mask or that character, and you don't even realize it. It's almost like a form of like DID, right? Like you become what you think is going to make you safe. And so that happens a lot of the time. A lot of the time we get with people or we be around people. Why do y'all think like we end up in these situations where we have these friends and then over time they switch up on us? And you be sitting there like, well, what the hell just happened? I didn't even do nothing to her. That's because they can no longer pretend. And a lot of the time, I don't think, and it's not really any of our problem, but you're walking around comfortable, right? You're walking around living in your truth, being yourself. And that bothers some people. It's a threat to some people because they can't do or be that. And I don't think a lot of us really truly understand that, or that it's talked about enough. And those of us that genuinely love and care about the people that we have around us, all we know is, this is somebody that we do anything for, and then they cross us and that shit hurts, right? Very valid feeling. So that's the first part of it, is sometimes it's not about choosing better. Sometimes people really are walking around with masks on, and it takes years for us to see through that mask. And there are people on this planet that do a very, very good job with deceiving those around them for whatever gain that they're looking for. And so until their need for you is fulfilled, you won't see it. And then once they don't need you anymore, or once you are really so much of a threat to them where their demons are irritated, that's when you'll finally see like who these people really are. So that's the first situation. Now, the next one, where I do agree with maybe the picking better. I've talked about this in videos when I talk about like how I had to do the work. A lot of the time we end up around people, right? Sometimes they always say you attract what you are. And when we hear that, especially when people have done things to us, we get offended or we get defensive, and we be like, how could I attract somebody that would beat me? Or how could I attract somebody that would do XYZ to me, right? And once again, this goes back to me holding myself accountable. When my self-esteem was in the dump, when I did not love myself the way I should have, I attracted people that treated me the same way that I treated myself, right? And even though I couldn't see it at the time, people look at you and say, okay, for instance, it's like they would say that you get treated based off of your looks. That's just how the world works, right? The lady that looks a lot more high maintenance is going to be treated completely differently than the bum, right? This is why, you have those women that they are beautiful on the outside, and so it seems as though life is better for them. But when you hear about the things that happen to them behind closed doors, it's completely different, right? And some people got ugly spirits and don't even realize it. It's some people walking around here that really do like, especially like I call them like the mean girls, but there's some girls walking around here that the only thing that they have going for them is their looks, because once you get under that meat suit, they're terrible people. But and I'm going to do another video on this too, but and it's literally going to be entitled, Dating Me Used to Be Exhausting and Now I Understand Why. So that one will probably come after this one while it's fresh in my mind. But when I was in a position where I didn't love myself as much as I should have, there were people that I allowed around me that at this grown age of 34, they can't even say boo to me. And sometimes it's just because you relate to those people for whatever reason, or a lot of us, especially people pleasers, we don't like to be alone. Well, didn't, because now, baby, please. But when you've been through certain things in your life, loneliness is hard, especially if you're a person that grew up, like I've talked about, I grew up abused. Rejection was very hard for me at one point in my life. It made me feel like I was not good enough until I understood that rejection was God's protection. So now when I get told no, I'll be like, oh yeah, Lord, thank you. Especially when God spin the block and show me why he told me no. And so a lot of these people, I can look back and there were people that were only around as long as I would let them use me. There were people that were around maybe to use me to hurt somebody else, whatever, what have you. And when I would finally look up and say no to certain things, or I started to exercise having boundaries, those people would slowly disappear. And that was the indicator for me that, sir, can we not do this while mommy's recording? Can you take it in the, don't bark at me, take it in the living room. If you want another child, get a Frenchie, okay? Because this man is literally, he been in his bed the whole time. Thank you. He been in his bed the whole time. Now all of a sudden, he got to come stand right behind me and collect that damn toy all over the floor. And he's very smart, because I literally asked him to move it. He picked it up and took it to the carpet. Like, you could have did that a long time ago. Anyway, so, yeah, sometimes it really is the people we pick. It's like the idea of, you know, when you watch like Intervention, right? And y'all see that this lady, the lady's on dope and she got this boyfriend or she got these friends, right? And they all crackheads too. And they look crazy. They all ate out, chewed up. Then the lady go to rehab and she get out of rehab and she got her weight back and she looking good. And the last thing she thinking about is that crackhead she used to run the streets with. Why? Because she started to know her value. And she looked at herself and said, okay, I hung around these people because of the drugs. In real life, these people would have never got the time of day. It's the same concept. You hang around or you entertain what you are at the time. This is why when you surpass people in life, a lot of people, they'll call you out on it first before you even realize that you're doing better for yourself, because that's when you get those, oh, you think you're better than everybody. And it's like, I don't think anything yet. And that was something that I struggled with bad, y'all. Like, I always, now I welcome it, but I used to like really get sad, like, and almost have like survivor's guilt when I would be doing better, because I'd be excited about the things that's happening around me. And then I would lose friends. And I'm using the term lose very loosely, but I would lose friends. It could be something too that's like small. Like, one of the things I had to start doing for myself was to celebrate my wins, because while I feel like you should operate with a certain level of humility, your humility should not be in making other people feel better about themselves. As far as like, oh, you know, I did this and I should be proud of myself, but I'm gonna play small because I don't want to bother nobody. No. You are God's testimony. What are we talking about right now? Play small. God did not create you for you to play small. And there's people around you that are going to be inspired. It's just these people are not inspired. And a lot of the time it's because it's a threat to their mediocrity. And that's not your problem. They need to go do the work and see the lady. I know I kind of rambled because I'm trying to braid and talk and make sure I stay on the subject, but that was something that I wanted to talk to y'all about. Like, it's not always about choosing better. This is why I speak so much on seeing the lady and doing the work, because once you do the work, I feel like everything falls in line. Like, I'm definitely a believer of when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And this is literally like one of those situations. Like, when you are ready to do and be different, the things that you need will align themselves with you. And I know this because I've been there. So, anyway, that is all I have for y'all on this topic today. As always, I appreciate y'all being here. Please leave me a comment. Let me know if this spoke to you. I love to hear y'all's 2 cents. Let me know you guys' experiences with these type of situations. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye, y'all.